defense pact between the US, UK and Australia. Now the pact cost France a deal of worth at least 37 billion US dollars to build a submarine for Australia. Now, the Paris said it found out only hours before the public announcement, and American and French president have now issued a joint statement saying the situation would have been benefited from both an open consultation from the allies. Now, Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron spoke by phone for half an hour on Wednesday. They will also meet in Europe at the end of the next month. Now, French anger was palpable. The French defense minister called it a stab in the back by their US counterparts. Crossing to Africa, we're looking at South Africa, while we see scrapping of Afrikaans teaching is unconstitutional. Court in South Africa rules. The South African highest court has ruled that a University of South Africa plans to phase out Afrikaans as a medium of teaching is unconstitutional. In 2016, the university changed English and Afrikaans dual medium language policy to English, and the university said it did this to address the imbalances of the past because of low demand for courses in Afrikaans. Now, the policy change sparked a 5-year battle with the mainly African lobby group, AfriForum, which mounted a legal challenge against the decision. UNISA is not the first South African university to face challenges over its language policy. In 2019, the University of Pretoria also scrapped the Afrikaans. Now, many have seen language as a polarizing, as it had been forced on black learners during the apartheid years and led to Soweto student uprising in 1976.
While still on the international scene, the future is raising its voice at dialogue at the UN meeting. Now, racism, climate change and worsening divisions among nations and cultures topped the agenda Wednesday as leaders from China to Costa Rica, from Finland to Turkey to the United Nations itself outlined reasons why the world isn't working as it should, and what must be done quickly to fix it, said one country's president. The future is raising its voice at us. For the very first time since COVID-19 pandemic began early last year, more than 24 world leaders appeared in person at the UN General Assembly on the opening day of their annual high-level meeting Tuesday. In speech after speech, the atmosphere was somber, angry and dire. As Chinese President Xi Jinping warned that the world has entered a period of new turbulence and transformation. Finland President Sauli Niinisto said, "We are indeed at a critical justice." And Costa Rican President Carlos Alvarado said the future is raising its voice at us. Speaker after speaker at Tuesday's opening of a nearly week-long meeting decried the inequalities and deep divisions that have prevented united global action to end the pandemic, which has also claimed nearly 4.6 million lives and is still raging, and also the failure for sufficiently tackling the climate crisis that is threatening the planet.
Well, clearly, very much is happening internationally. The world is quite filled with a number of activities and much events, as we've seen most recently, but also on the African continent, quite a number of challenges. And what we see there in South Africa, a story and how the university is trying to phase out the use of a local dialect language in teaching methodology. I don't know what your comment be it. We have had quite a long sentiment about. And I remember one time a report came out, even in Uganda, that if people here were being taught in their local languages, what we want to call the mother tongues, or what the white man wants to refer as vernacular, probably they would be performing better, they would be understanding better. I'm imagining Molen being taught in what language? Rudama. Would you think, would it be much easier for you to learn if you're being taught in Runyankole, as you said?
Maybe certain or whatever education, maybe course units, but I don't think it would work for everything regarding education, because like then
say math, gata, kamu, kibida, how do they say?
I don't know, but I think it is also something. It is also something.
But it's happening. I remember I traveled to Kisoro sometime, and I noticed sometimes to make these young people understand, because they actually don't know English at a particular level, the teachers chip in a bit of, local languages, yes, to crack a particular point and sort of like bring it out much better. I don't know, Priscilla, what do you think?
In my perspective, let's look at religion. I think religion would be the best case example. They have done a good job in translating the holy books into various languages to cover the different entities, the different cultures, the different languages out there in the world. And so if it can be done for holy books, surely, whose messiahs and saviors come from particular areas, but there's that translation of dialect into the local dialects of different regions of this world. How much more for education if we can have people going to China? Do you know when you go to China on a student visa, your first year is strictly for learning Chinese? Isn't that interesting? So you have to learn Chinese, and then thereafter you can be enrolled into the course that you applied for. So those that have understood the importance, because when you actually teach dialect, local dialect, you are spreading your wings in terms of dominancy, you're spreading your wings in terms of influence. That's why they say that the Waganda are very influential in Uganda, because every single place that you go to, there's a person speaking Luganda, even if they're from Acholi, but they know Luganda. They're from the west, but they speak Luganda. They're from the east, but they know that to just, go around, you have to speak Luganda.
That applies differently. When you go to some countries, they have been bold enough to make their domestic languages their national languages. But in a country where we have absence of, because if our government can have the boldness, at least to have a second language that comes from the natives, but most recently we are seeing Swahili trying to be brought to because of the East African concept. But even before you want to conceptualize the East African agenda, how about you conceptualize the national agenda in terms of language? And I really want to see that day where people can, you see, and I know for a fact, as a person from a background of teaching, I know that some students fail exams because of language. I know it because someone writes English in Luganda, or someone writes Luganda in English. Absolutely. Like someone says, so kusotinga, and then they write that in an exam. Now, clearly they are writing English in Luganda. When you go to the sisters in the West, the Molenzia, they speak English in the Nyankore. You will not understand something. I told you about a story where I interfaced with a child who was trying to say the word algae, and they were saying argoi, and I'm like,
they were spelling it out in their head.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I think it's worse for scientists, the students who are taking science courses. I do remember having done sciences. It was always hard to have good English in the science class. So most of us were struggling, but because you're just dealing with numbers, you're dealing with theories that have nothing to do with speaking English. So it's hard to again be good in English when you're concentrating mostly on the science.
Mollen,
I am telling you, why is it that
I also
compared
did the same.
to the arts people, I am telling you there is a huge difference. Looking in the science class,
I was
the
taught
English
by
is just
a teacher chemistry, but you don't know what I went through to understand chemistry. It was one of the reasons why I struggled to do that later on, probably in HSC. I tell you, because the person come and anyway. But
Markonikov's theory.
Just like how they ask someone to mention a word or to pronounce it from it, but you know all those things. But anyway, for our viewers out there, we know for a fact that probably also would want to know what happens. What would you think? Do you think it's a good thing for us to have people taught in our local languages? Don't you think it's a good thing? And what would be the effects and benefits? But anyway, apart from that, we also have our poll question, which Priscilla will be taking us through.
Our poll question this Thursday morning, we are looking at what can be done by the various stakeholders to have more people vaccinated for COVID-19. What can be done by various stakeholders to have more people vaccinated for COVID-19? Hashtag UBCGMU. You can send us a WhatsApp on the screen that is before you, and also an SMS. But better still, you can even head over to our Twitter account, which is at UBCTV Uganda. Respond to it, and we'll definitely be able to catch up with your thoughts, your comments, and your resolutions later on in the show.
Now, today being Ruben's birthday, we dedicated this song to you by Alan Jackson. It is the older I get. It's a country old-time classical that I know will move this tall man. I remember in high school we used to call tall people Longoi. Longoi. This Ruben is not tall, he's long. This long man. This long man, a very beautiful song from us here. Good morning, Uganda, and we hope you do move this. The message is deep, and for all of you watching, please also pick something from Alan Jackson, The Older I Get. Let's have a break. We'll be back with Priscilla having our newsroom.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
My home, I smile when I think of you, Uganda. My home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda. My home, oh, my Uganda.
I know with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart, mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey, mama.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
Getting GoTV was the best decision James has ever made. Finding a good place to watch football was never easy, but it was costly until James discovered something big. Now he can finally enjoy the benefits of home-grown advantage with a decoder and 1 month of GoTV value. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Switch from AfriCell to Airtel, Uganda's only 100% 4G network, and get 50% data bonus on all bundles purchased using Airtel Money. Visit the nearest Airtel shop with a valid national ID to buy a SIM card today. For business entities, please share an email with business.support@ug.airtel.com. Enjoy the best rates on calls, SMS, data, and Airtel Money across Uganda on your preferred number. 50% data bonus is valid till 15th November 2021. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning to you once again. It is 4 minutes past 7 a.m. on the 23rd of September 2021. Priscilla Naroge is my name, and you are watching Good Morning Uganda on UBC TV. Alongside me is Felix Nkunda. But before we get into the day, we still extend our birthday greetings to Igwe. Happy birthday to you, Ruben P. Machibirango. And we pray blessings and more life upon you for what you do for the entire team here at Good Morning Uganda. Away from that, we also want to first track back to our poll question this morning. We want your input in regards to how the government can actually be able to reach the target that the president has set for the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and the entire country really responsible for the population. The 4.8 target by December. And so our poll question this morning
is that what can be done by the various stakeholders to have more people vaccinated for COVID-19, and you can be able to share with us your true sentiments, your opinions, or your any views on hashtag UBCGMU. That is on Twitter, on WhatsApp number 0709 60 25 92, and of course on Facebook and on YouTube for some of you who are streaming live.
Okay, all right. So as of yesterday, we had the president addressing the nation on the update for COVID-19, giving us a recap of the last lockdown that we had the 42-day lockdown that we had. Some of the sectors were kept under lockdown after the easing of that 42-day lockdown. However, he had committed that after 60 days, he would come back to the country and nationally and readdress some of these issues, readdress some of these sectors. And depending on how we had been managing COVID-19 between that time gap, he would then revise some of the restrictions that we put, most especially on churches, who are expected that the president would ease the lockdown on them. Good news for them coming out as of yesterday. But just to backtrack to the statistics, as of yesterday, the country had registered 122,502 confirmed cases, and now we have a death toll of 3,135 people that have so far succumbed to COVID-19. Additionally, the current admissions stand at 340, both in public and private facilities. And when you look at the breakdown there, you do have 272 in public, you do have 66 in prison, and only 2 in the private facilities, of whom you have 144, which is a 38% in the severe or critical category. Of course, he took us through the curve of how we have managed COVID-19 ever since it came back in 2020. In March, we had a spike around October, November, December, which was reportedly aligned with the elections and campaign times of the general election that we recently came out of. And then obviously March, April, May, then May, June, July, we had another spike which led us into the second wave. So looking at the response of that, one of the responses intensively being acted on is the vaccination drive across the country. We have received a number of vaccinations in the country by the Ministry of Health, and now we have vaccination drives that have been happening for essential groups. We have targeted groups stretching from health workers, those that are keeping law and order security teams. You do have teachers, now students have been added to that list, the elderly. However, the challenge is that people are still not yet responsive to the vaccination drives, campaigns, and even accessibility to some of these facilities that are offering the vaccinations. Why is this still a challenge, yet this is good for the good of the country to move forward?
Well, of course, when you talk about it being in the good of the country, then one would want to ask or try to also get to understand it's good in the sense of what? Because between you and me, you would want to know that everyone in particular in this country has a different interest. Generally, then you break it down to being specific. But the wise in this would be to handle the issues of importance sector by sector. For example, the president has continuously come out to mention that the issue of markets. But I have not heard him emphasize people in markets to get vaccinated. Yet that would be a good starting point, because if you generalize vaccination, you may not get the point of it. But if you break it down to categories, and that approach will work. Like how you say teachers, for us to open schools, we must hit a number of this amount of teachers. That is easier to work out.
If you refer to markets have not been
closed at all.
Any lockdown.
So that's what I'm saying, that yet it is much easier to work that way. Because if you want to gain general relevancy of the vaccinating drive, you may miss the point. Because people get lost in, seemingly in the fact that Castor Priscilla got immunized, vaccinated, the teachers got vaccinated, the soldiers, the doctors. Yet if we single out and we say, okay, if we are going to open up markets, because markets have been up and running, and yet we may not be able to guarantee how the control in these places, the traffic and what, now that even the president opened the Tadewomuburo, those mass markets.
Yeah, the motion markets.
Yes, in particular districts, if I may be particular, others are still being watched probably for the next 2 weeks to ascertain whether or not it is safe, like Kampala, maybe I had in other cities. So for us to talk about vaccination generally, we may miss the point. But if we break it down to categorical approach, and as it is for example, teachers, the president also did touch the point of looking at bar owners and bar workers. That would be a good approach. That would be a good approach. It is easier to monitor and easier to sensitize, you know. For example, you have more reason to explain easily to teachers why they should go for vaccination, because probably we're looking at their target clients at risk, even themselves, and all these things. When you go to universities, these are all adults. How do you use these segments for you to efficiently implement this whole vaccination thing? When you go to medics, you go to people practicing in the legal fraternity, you know, you must commit to something for you to work it out.
Then call into deployment of the various stakeholders to actually extend these campaigns for vaccinations closer to the targeted groups. For example, if it's teachers, you use the teachers union to actually address this issue, spread it to the union members, sell it to the union members, who then sell it to the communities, the students, and fellow teachers for that matter. If we are going to be talking about medics, I think the best example that we have seen is security forces. The frontliners or the leaders of security teams coming out to actually have their own jobs broadcasted while they're receiving their jobs has sent a message and has actually quickened the drive for them to receive vaccinations as security agencies. Can't we just adopt the same when we look at him addressing the role of RDCs in the different communities, the role of the local leaders, them being involved, the way they've been involved in the security conversation, the way we've seen them previously being involved in the election conversations. They were out there, they were loud. Why are they not loud now? Maybe perhaps if they also adopted that loudness into sending the message closer to the people, maybe we can hit the target of 4.8 at the end of December.
See, you cannot give what you don't have. It's a principle of life. You can only give what you have. And if I'm to ask, have we any statistics of how many government workers have been vaccinated? That should be a good starting basis for us to start causing evaluation or accountability. We don't know if all of them are vaccinated because it is not a requirement. But how many government employees are vaccinated? Let's start there. Let's go to the office of the Prime Minister. Go to the various ministries. How many of them are
vaccinated?
No one is talking about that. That would be the best way to start. And in fact, I would want this to be one on top of the agenda when His Excellency is addressing again that I have been able to immunize the people I employ. Because government probably employs about 10 million people or even more. If we can start there, and that will also include teachers. So I think, as I'm saying, you cannot give what you don't have. It would be a better approach if it's coming from the confines of government, to be symbolic, to be exemplary, and to pick up the pace. Because if you want even to reach 4 million target, just say all government employees must be vaccinated. Because you have the capacity as government in terms of space, in terms of enforcement, in terms of airman, in terms of all things.
You have the capacity to allow private sector to actually deploy this strategy. We
exactly
deploying it for the business workers downtown. Now we're having KCCA partnering with Nile Breweries and bar owners and restaurant owners to send a message to their people. Look here, this is your favorite bar, but for it to open up, come get vaccinated so that we can enjoy a beer together.
That's a good move, Priscilla, but it is very far-fetched, as I've told you. Let me give you an example. I want you to imagine, if honestly and truly we are targeting by December to have about just about five people to be, yes, about. You cannot tell me that if we had the intention, and we are having drugs expire, and the president talks about the RDCs. You see, how many RDCs have vaccinated themselves? That's what I'm saying, that the move, yes, these are the records that should persuade each one. The reason why RDCs cannot enforce, because even most of them may not be even vaccinated. You get the point. And do you know why? Because some of our institutions have not done a good job to bring this message closer to Ugandans. And this is what now is the challenge, because The president is fighting a closed battle. He's saying all these things, they are lobbying for vaccinations where else, but now the vaccination is here. And then we are also struggling to make sure people get vaccinated. So for me, I think that the most relevant stakeholders in terms of fighting COVID-19 should be the very starting point to campaign. And this is government. Why don't we have a standing order? All government, its cooperatives, its associates, its partners, let's start with that cluster, because with that you have all the areas you're targeting. You have teachers that you're targeting who are government workers. You have drivers, they are government workers. You have, bankers, you have technocrats, you have what? You have all these people. Let's start with that. That is an easier way. But if you cannot come and make accountability of your own team and you're persuading the team on the other side, it becomes hard. That is in my opinion.
We've seen the standing order actually being reacted to in the UK and in a positive way. And even when we looked at the aviation sector yesterday, last week, it showed that indicators for anyone that is moving to countries that have really maximized on their vaccination drives, such as the UK, even if you just have gotten your one dose of the vaccine, you'll still have to go through as if you have not been vaccinated at all. So that goes to show you that the intent and the seriousness of how they are focusing on ensuring that they have the masses vaccinated fully is important. Speaking of vaccines, we do have vaccines that have so far arrived in the country, and as of 20th we received a visa from the USA, a donation of 1,647,000 vaccines. US has given us Moderna 647,000 doses there, and that will be that has also been received. France will be giving us AstraZeneca, and they've given us so far 501,000 doses. Belgium giving us AstraZeneca, and that is 344,900 doses. In China, Sinovac has given us, and we also be expecting another batch of 700,000 doses come the 30th of September 2021. Basically, at the end of the year, Uganda should be having a storage of 11,978,840 vaccines altogether to hit the target. Now, if we're to go by the 4.8 million, multiply that by 2 on the account that each person has gotten 2 doses.
And there's one that Johnson & Johnson is just one jab. So you find that at least we'll be able to cover about 6-point-something million people.
Okay, all right. Let's look at some of the sectors that have, as of yesterday, now been given a partial ease of the lockdown has been eased on them. Most significant of those is places of worship. Places of worship and their leaders, right?
That's a good one.
We saw some leaders reacting to the massacre, greater massacre, issues that were happening insecurity-wise, and they were partly blaming it on the fact that places of worship were under lockdown. People's faith had deterred, and they had no place of rescue or of solace to actually run to. Some politicians were shaping it in that manner. But away from that, places of worship can now open, of course with the exception of the restrictions, 200 people per service. SOPs must be adhered to. Now the adjustment this time around is that choir masters, preachers must mask up.
And when they say that, and she tried to get a mask and sing hallelujah in a mask, but nevertheless you cannot block praise in whichever way. But Priscilla, about some of the sectors that were eased, and in particular places of worship, between you and me, Africa by far we are traditional people in terms of praise and the things we believe in. We subscribe greatly to things that bring us together, be it religion, be it culture. We honor them so much, and for us, taking away that is like taking away a piece of us. When you close places of worship in Europe, people may not, because I've been to a place somewhere in Europe, and I went to church, and we used to be like 3 people in fact in a cathedral.
Okay. This is without
we used to be,
COVID-19.
yes, and that's long ago. And the people I would be with would be very old people, like 7. When there are so many, you know, they're like, when church service you can have like maybe 17 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's that kind of life for them. Their attribute and their attachment to social gatherings or religious is not that much. But when you come to Africa, it means a lot to us.
Okay.
And this is why when you see church leaders coming out to say, look here, we need to meet with our people. Because for us, you see, church is not only looked at as a place of sharing sermons, reading the Bible, but there are many activities that church has transited into in the most recent century. Church is no longer just about pulpits.
Yeah.
You know,
it contributes to the social development of the country at large. Yeah.
Even political development, you know, everything. We look at the transactions that churches are involved in, directly look at issues of taxation. So I think the move of opening churches for me was top on agenda, and I know for a fact the president couldn't have missed that. I was so happy he was on point when he came to that. However, opening up churches also leaves a big burden to the churches, the institutions as well. In as much as we have a duty as people who subscribe to churches, we also have responsibility. So let us be responsible as people who subscribe to these churches, or church owners, or people who dwell into these churches, in terms of how we abide by the SOPs. Okay. And I think it was timely, honestly and truly.
Okay. All right, so just to re-echo the new conditions for places of worship, limit the number of worshippers to at one time not more than 200, provided the place of worship can ensure physical distancing of 2 meters on either side and adequate aeration. There must be strict adherence of all SOPs at all times, i.e. hand washing, use of alcohol, best sanitizer, temperature monitoring, and also consistent wearing of face masks by all congregants, including choir and preachers. Then also no congregation for worship after curfew hours, 200 persons limit and physical distancing. Then also for special functions like weddings, funeral services, have also been given the confirmation to have a limitation of up to 200 people. And then partner with the government to communicate and mobilize the population for vaccination and other control measures. Let's talk about weddings. I know there's some people who have weddings this weekend, and they had gone by the original number. Now they're stranded. Oh, I can finally invite my mukaka. Weddings, burials, and social events.
Yeah. However, 200 is a good number. It's a very good number, actually. I'm wondering how many weddings have more than 200 people, really. On a spectrum of 10, you would find that only about maybe 2 would go to about 500. But it is basically about that. But anyway, I think away from just the socializing and enjoyment, the purpose is much bigger. Yeah. I have been to a wedding function, I think like a year ago, and from that function I know that about 3 people or 5 got COVID-19. So it's real. It's real, and it's incumbent on us now that things are getting better. The president gave a picture, tried to paint a picture of where we stand, and you can see that there's been tremendous change of situation in terms of COVID-19. Now, everything we do relating to our mannerism and how we adhere to SOPs will definitely also either guarantee us a safer entrance in 2022 as probably an unlocked country in terms of the curfew and what and all these things. So the reason why they put all these things just to like keep us in check. Let's not go out like that about it.
Casinos, gaming, betting shops, and gyms have also been given a partial uplift of the lockdown, but they must close by 6 p.m. Various local governments, 6 p.m. They must work with the city authorities, National Gaming and Lottery Board must inspect the various betting outlets for suitability and adherence to SOPs before they are actually allowed to open. Concerts, disco halls, performing arts and beaches, to these ones, until we attain the 4.8 million priority population in terms of vaccination, they're going to have to wait a little bit. Bars equally regarded as high-risk area where individuals have no sobriety to observe SOPs. That has also been put on hold so far. Cinemas, local cinemas, aka Vibandas, have also been put on hold until we have that 4.8 vaccination population attained. Curfew. In your assessment, has the curfew at 7 p.m. actually been one that has attained a certain level of goal in terms of managing COVID-19?
Definitely, and I wonder why, when people say that, what's the relationship of curfew with the spread of COVID? I just feel sorry for such people, because I know for a fact that it is part of the move that keeps people away from crowds. You know, people are in their homes, which is basically what we do during lockdown. Stay at home. Every time you stay at home, you reduce the risks that come with movements, interface, and all these kind of things. So the issue of curfew, though the expectation is that it will be raised a bit to about 9, like it was before, to allow, now that we have so much traffic running, we have some of the institutions back and play and whatever. I thought that it would have been much better to increase a bit, maybe to 8 or 9, but well, that wasn't the case.
Well, reopening of schools, this has been a conversation that people have been putting question marks to, wondering when are they going to be reopened. Reports were coming out, and now they've been confirmed that as far as general school reopening, we'll have to look at that next year. For now, the vaccination drive is focusing on teachers. Students above the age is over 18. The explanation of the toddlers, the younger population, ages 0 to maybe 10 years, they may not be able to contract COVID-19, but they can get it, but it doesn't affect them. However, they can spread it to the senior population, which will then convert into deaths or even severe illnesses, given the fact that we have not yet attained the vaccination targets that we have.
About students and teachers, and he laughed when he said that the students will be infecting their teachers, and their teachers will die. And I found that quite hilarious, but it's a true matter that infants have a high resilience in terms of COVID, but they are quite a high viral load. That would mean that they can transmit it very easily and very quickly, and that's what he's trying to say, that you're going to see high cases when you open up just like that. However, universities will be opening, I think, by November 1st, if I'm not mistaken, around that time, and of course they just have to make sure they have everything needed in place. And the expectation is that guys who go in the universities are probably mature. They're able to, some of them will be vaccinated. It's easy for them to adhere with the SOPs, and universities can come up with programs that can be accommodative in terms of reducing the spread. Like they can have, it is easy for them to organize shifts, like you can have evening, day, weekend, online, long distance, all these things. So it is easier for universities to open in this sort of setup. So I think that's basically the mind. But again, it is majorly the duty of the most important stakeholders to see that we have our kids back to school. And by this I talk about school owners, parents, but also teachers, because now the biggest or the concrete discussion is about teachers getting vaccinated. If we don't have the right statistics, we may be stuck in this position.
When you talk about the stakeholders, we saw the impact of the stakeholders actually being, how can I call it, not being responsive in COVID-19. It's one of the things that led us into the second wave, is the fact that they would have cases within the schools, but they would keep quiet about them. They wouldn't address them, neither would they report them to responsible parties to be able to do that, simply because for them, they were putting, if we can't call it, they were putting themselves first. They were putting money back.
Well,
they were putting savings.
One can say that.
Their property back.
No. That's just one side of the coin. No. That's just one side of the coin. I think also because we lacked with the absence of a more strategic approach to the issue of COVID. Then
the strategic approach was there on paper
which
in September last year. Ministry of Health put out surveillance teams to be able to supervise the schools where they're reopening.
Did they supervise
to
them?
Ensure on paper it was there.
That's
they
what I'm
showed
saying.
us within Kampala maybe
this was avoidable,
but the rest of the country we can't not ascertain that.
If we had guys doing their job on these teams, maybe we wouldn't have got there, because many schools opened without any adherence to these SOPs. So if you let them open without looking at this, then you blame them for doing all these kind of things. I think for me that wasn't founded.
In regards to education, to date, out of the 550,000 teachers, we have so far had 269,945 receiving their first jab, second jab to 96,653, and then we expect those to also be receiving theirs any time now to ensure that at least tertiary and university education can be continuing. Away from that, we get to see that the rest of the learning institutions are waiting January 2022 for a full reopening. We'll be continuing seeing the assessment of some of these directives that the President has put out and how Ministry of Health will be responding in ensuring that the target of the 4.8 million Ugandans vaccinated by the end of 2021 is attained for us to, live and just adapt to COVID-19. We get to look at the papers this morning as the sun is coming up. The papers also have come up with more interesting stories for you to look out for in the dailies.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
5 for 5, 5 times the winning, yeah. 5 times the happiness, yeah. 5 times the luckiness, yeah. 5 for 5, oh yeah. It's 5 for 5. 5 for 5, 5 times the money, yeah. 5 times the shopping, yeah. 5 times the prizes, yeah. 5 for 5, oh yeah. It's 5 for 5. 5 for 5.
Win 100,000 Uganda shillings weekly in the 5 for 5 jackpot. Simply download the Center mobile app. Click Center on the go to open your account online. Transact 5 times or more using Center Mobile, Center Visa, and Center Agent to stand a chance to win. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. So, participate in the 5 for 5 jackpot and win millions in daily and weekly prizes. The 5 for 5 jackpot is brought to you by Centenary Bank, our bank. Centenary Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
Getting GoTV was the best decision James has ever made. Finding a good place to watch football was never easy, but it was costly until James discovered something big. Now he can finally enjoy the benefits of homegrown advantage with a decoder and 1 month of GoTV Valley. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it.
I smile when I think of you, Uganda, my home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda, my home, oh my Uganda.
I know with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart. Mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey, mama.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
And we will take you through what's trending in the papers. And with me, I'm holding the dailies. Now we'll start off with Daily Monitor. Now, churches, mosques open, bars still closed. They give you basically a summary of what the president said. And of course, about curfew 7 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. and bars still closed, cinemas, borders, places of worship, public transport, schools. Much of that is what you'll be getting in the papers when you get a copy. Now, students declare parents dead to fluke study loan. Wow. Okay. Karamoja girls sold at 20,000, says Minister, and IGP Ochola breaks silence on his health. And of course, today in DM today, cars, Nissan Magnite offers plenty of appeal. And of course, the lizard comes out to say poverty takes away all dignity. 47 students disqualified for killing parents. Now, inside the papers, winners and losers is in reworked NSSF bill and Chambogo Varsity to recruit 490 lecturers. And now from the archives, President Museveni with journalists in his gym at State House, Nakasero on January 31st, 2003. The president emphasized the need to exercise to keep healthy. Now, today in history, in 1988, September 23rd, Dr. Besigye warns media houses. And of course, today also in 1966, Saudi Kingdom is formed. Well, of course, also we'll now also take a look at what's happening in the new vision. Now, still about the president's speech, tertiary schools open November 1st. That's a good one. And restriction on betting and churches eased. Now they give you here new IGG judges swear in at State House and what expectations we have from them. Now CMI raids house of former ISO boss there, and also pass O-level, S3 entrepreneurship, English, computer, plus S2 physics and math. Now series Kakande was lucky to complete school. Inside they also give you from the archives here, a photo of Dr. Milton Obote and of course Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the president, and facts and myths. Why should my children be vaccinated? They give you the answers to that. And did you know Chameleon was inaugural winner of Pearl of Africa Music Award? That is in 2003. They also give you a breakdown of the cases and a summary of who has been vaccinated yet. Now we'll cross over to sports in the new vision, where we see Kasule leads the way. It's sports about peak. Now that's about shillings 330 billion. There we see what that can do to increase sports arena in Uganda. Now also you are the eye of the nation. Minister Obua tells participants there, who we see Minister Hamson Obua seated left and NCS Chairman Donald Rukari with the athletes. Now, independence celebrating Uganda's sport inventor. Proline raised the bar very high. That is Proline Director Mujib Kasule. And KCC groundwork on course. We see there an uplift of the stadium, and lifters are determined, of course, and also it's going to be hard on players. Now, sports in the Sports there in the Daily Monitor. We'll be looking at Express in bullfight for Uganda Cup final, and Rock cherish SA moments, look forward for African Championship. Now we'll cross over to the Daily Nation, where we see Inner Circle, Ruto picks top brains for 2022 polls there, and some of them are Dr. Davis Ndi, a professor, that is Raphael Manavu, Dr. Irene Asianga, and Professor Edward Kisianji there to be a part of his team. And death in the police cell, a power investigation, the mysterious death of a man arrested in Kangundo. Now, COVID millionaires, MPs have recommended the prosecution of Kambe Gitara and the entire Kamisia board linked to search and shocker for CBC, but also Lake tragedy, paying tears for families as more bodies found there. Now, get yourself copies of the dailies for you to be able to look at the in-depth of some of these stories. Now, we'll cross over to Naroga Priscilla, who will be also letting us know how the city and the roads look like as you get yourself to Kampala.
All right, thank you so much, Felix Nkunda. Now, of course, we do have the Kampala Northern Bypass, and we have continued works. As you know, we had partial works done on that route, and then it was declared that they must do it according to the original plans, and that affected the works around some of the roundabouts. One of the roundabouts that was affected was Chisasi roundabout, was put on a close off. Also, you do have the Nalia roundabout that was put on a close off, and they are all being reconstructed according to the regional plan by the National Road Network Planner. Now, looking at that, we want to see traffic from Chanja heading into Chisasi area code and onto the Chisasi roundabout that has recently been reconstructed and reopened for public access. Traffic picking up from where you would be having the Nira Okiso office. That is a red stretch of a zone up into the trading center of Chisasi Business or Trading Center for that matter. And that red zone is actually even going away from the trading center and heading onto the roundabout. You also do have traffic that is coming in from the back route, which is the Bukoto Chisasi Road, and that is where you would be having red zones that are getting onto that interaction that you have there at the trading center cross junction. The traffic would be coming in from Bukoto Metodi and also residential areas of Chisasi Bukoto, and trying to access Chisasi Chanja from that particular trading center. And so that is why you see the red lines here crossing from Bukoto Chisasi, or known as the Bahai Road, trying to connect in the trading center here in Chisasi. Also, you do have Kulambiro Road that is picking up some traffic coming into the trading center. Majorly, these are residential areas, so you would be expecting people to be coming from home and getting into the heart of the city to conduct whatever the business for the day is. You get to see that away from Chisasi town, looking at this traffic heading onto the Chisasi roundabout. You do have Pastankara supermarket. The red-orange line does continue. You also do expect a lot of traffic coming in from the you do have traffic that is coming in from the Kulambiro Ring Road that is also affecting the flow of traffic here. Now, because the Chisasi roundabout has newly been done and it's reopened for public use, we do have what is known as the Chisota Road now being closed off for public access. So right now, for any one of you that has been known to use the Chisota Road to actually get into Chisasi Chanja, for now they have actually put concrete barricades to avoid people actually using that road, because this particular area here is still under construction. They're still working on the drainage, and that definitely is affecting the flow of traffic. So rather, they closed it off and it's no longer accessible. So people who stay in Chisota zone, you will have to then use the Bukoto Chisasi route and be able to come out from Bukoto and access any other part of town that you wanted to go to. Looking at the Chisasi roundabout this morning, you do have some orange zones that are for traffic that is coming in, of course, from the southern part of the bypass, and then it does interface here, connect and continues maybe into the likes of Bwegere. You also get to see the traffic moving heavily on this other side of traffic coming in from Bwegere and trying to connect and enter into Ntinda Trading Center. That also there is a sharp one. Now this is entirely also because there are those concrete barricades that are now demarcating exactly where the vehicles must pass. Even though the road has been widened, there are those barricades that are showing the traffic exactly where to pass, because some of these other places have not yet been completely worked on. Now this will bring us into around Ndere Center. Now we do have this particular road that connects you from Ndere Center, just above Ndere Center, and then brings you and connects you still into Chisasi, and then it still drops you on the roundabout, or no, not the roundabout, but it gives you a connection here on the bypass. You get to see that it now has the red dots indicating that this road has been closed off. And according to the map here, it indicates that the closure is up until December 2021. December 2021, and that is as of 2 minutes ago. So yes, the road is closed off for now, and it's not accessible to the rest of the public. So residential areas within there will have to find alternative ways of working out how they maneuver and get in and out of their homes into the heart of the city. Stepping into Ntinda Trading Center this morning, we get to see traffic moving rather fairly, if you could ask me. Of course, you do have Chigobe Road bringing in traffic that is coming in from Minister's Village, also Old Kira Road traffic, but away from this junction, the rest of Ntinda into Bukoto is clear. You get to see Ntinda Chisasi Road continuing into the other side of Nakawa, which also indicates that it's clear. And so basically Ntinda this morning is not having as much traffic as would be expected. So those are some of your traffic updates that you want to consider if you are living in the areas of Chisasi, Chanja, Ntinda, interacting with Nakawa, or even coming in from the likes of Chiwatude, Nadia, and you still have to interact with the trading center in Ntinda. It's actually easy for you to pass, so don't use the panels. The direct routes are clear. We get to move on to weather, nature and climate with Molen Kenyana.
Yes, once again, a very good morning to you. It is a bright and sunny morning here across much of Kampala, and mostly for the Lake Victoria Basin, but also across northern Uganda, especially the Karamoja region, starting off with very clear skies. We do have mostly sunny conditions coming in, but there are rains in the forecast. We'll see that later in the day. Now, today we woke up to mostly wondering about the report that is coming in from Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and that has been backed by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He did insist mostly on the action. Well, we do know that the report has showed that we are on a path for a 2.7 degree increment in temperatures if we do not take action about climate change. But he also says that there is a small window that is left, and I want to quote the words that he said. He says, being a week away from COP21, seemingly light years away from reaching our climate action targets, we need more ambitions from all countries in 3 key areas, that is mitigation, finance, and adaptation. Now, one thing that I realized that developing countries, Uganda is among that category, that we have failed to focus on mostly is adaptation, because that is the much part that we can do. The climate extremes are going to keep coming, but how we adapt to that, how we ensure to live within the normal, what seems to be the normal, is something that we should focus on. Now, the Secretary General also said that it's not too late to keep alive the 1.5 degree Celsius goal, but the window is rapidly closing. We just talked about having a target of 1.5 in 2015. That is when the Paris Agreement came into action. Having that, keeping to that path required a lot of things from all the countries. The national contributions that were required from all the countries involved and member to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change were supposed to be put into action. When you give these contributions, have a commitment to actually make sure that is what your country is going to do. And I remember being at that conference, we did have a delegation from Uganda also having its contribution. But what has been done? Why are we still having the same issues? Why are we on a path of 2.7 degrees Celsius instead of 1.5? And 2030 doesn't seem far. If we have set all these goals towards 2030, then the window is closing, and I have to agree with what the UN Secretary General is saying. The window is closing. It's just a small time before we can actually go back to 1.5, but it seems really a fast stretch now. For us to achieve that and go back to that original path, there are a lot of things that have to be done fast, especially with the energy sector. This is a time we have to really look into having to commit to getting away from use of fossil fuels. And until we do that, until we make a commitment to abolish use of fossil fuels, we are still going to be talking about veering off this path, and the consequences will be obviously looking at all these climate extremes, looking at extreme weather events, just from heat waves to flooding to mudslides, and it's going to be all over, to droughts. We have seen the longest drought in Madagascar this year, still stretching for 6 months and plus. Famine, especially the southern part of Madagascar. It is not just parts of Europe that are dealing with the heat wave that are looking at climate extremes, but even here in Africa, we did see a lot of one on record floods in Lagos, and that has not happened in a long time. So when we see all these things piling, I think it's about time that we really commit to what we are supposed to do. And also this morning we did look at a report that is coming in from that is Greenpeace. They are talking about the human activities that have contributed much more to climate change, and by that they're looking into mostly livestock farming. Now, we do see mostly the big name food companies, the KFCs of this world. What happens is that these guys do have farms for the chicken, for the goat, for the cows. So this takes on a lot of land, but also more to that is the practice and the process, the food processing. So Greenpeace is suggesting some of the ways that actually can be done to make sure that we still do the farming, because now if livestock farming is, especially for developing countries, is something that we are doing and we live on, we have as a big contribution to our economy. But how can we make sure that in turn it is not affecting our climate? Now, one of the suggestions is actually looking at the biologically improved species. And most of that also, I want to think that these big companies, if we're talking about companies, for example, and I'm giving KFC as an example, among others that have really have big markets internationally, if we can look at breeds that do not take a long time and also have the practices that best favor the environment, then we can help reduce on the contributions that are seemingly coming from livestock, having livestock, especially looking at methane. That is one of the gases that is produced, and it is also a greenhouse gas. So we need to look at those human activities that do contribute to climate change and also have ways to actually cut down these emissions, have practices that will help cut down these emissions. Well, but away from that, this morning, we also want to take a look into your weather update for this morning across much of the country, and this is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. We will look at our forecast for this morning. We'll start off here in the central Lake Victoria Basin. Now, what we have is mostly in terms of sunny and cloudy conditions as we speak, but we do expect light showers. Those will be coming in for a few areas across that region. We're expecting temperatures to also start off at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, so don't get comfortable with the sun. There are rains in the forecast. Now we continue for central northern Uganda. That is where we have Adjumani. We do have Gulu in that category. Padel, that area is expected to start off with intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, and temperatures will be rising up to 27 degrees centigrade. That is quite a warm morning to start off with across central north, but we do have rains in the forecast for later in the afternoon. Do look out for those. The eastern parts of Central, we have Ruwero in that category, Nakasongola, Nakaseke. That area is expected to also start off with a mix of clouds and sunshine. Already seeing sunny skies across that area. Temperatures starting off at 27 degrees centigrade, and that will continue into the afternoon, where we do expect a little more of those sunny intervals, but rains will be kicking in later in the evening. Now we move more looking at that is the southwestern part of the country. We do have Barara, we do have Uganda, Isinjiro. That area expected to have sunny intervals as well, and temperatures are 26. We do have that is the eastern part of Lake Victoria, Tororo, Busia, Bujiri, Iganga, Jinja, also expected to have intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, and starting off with a warm morning at 27 degrees centigrade. That is to the east of Lake Victoria Basin. Now coming over across eastern Uganda, we do have, that is the eastern part of Kyoga, where we have Soroti, we have Katakuya, Moria, Kumi. That area is also forecasted to have sunny intervals this morning. And also starting off with warm weather at 27 degrees centigrade. We do expect rainy conditions to kick in later in the evening, so do look out for those if you're traveling towards that area or residing there. Now looking at more areas, that is across Mount Elgon Highlands, Mbale, we have Bududa, we have Kapchora. That area is also forecasted to start off with sunny intervals. That is at 26 degrees centigrade, but rains are in the forecast for later in the day. Do look out for those, and those are likely to be scattered across several places over Mount Elgon Highlands. Now also looking at the western parts of Central, where we have Masaka, where we have that is Western Lake Victoria Basin. We have Masaka, we have Rengo, we have Kalisizo, Rakai, Zimbabwe. That area can expect to have light showers this morning, and also temperatures expected to start off at 26 degrees centigrade across that area. Now looking at the satellite, it seems like most areas are already starting to develop cloudy conditions, but we do expect those to clear, especially across the southern sector and mostly southwestern Uganda. Right now we're dealing with sunny intervals, but we do expect those to also clear into sunny skies as the morning progresses. But yes, it's a clear start into our day today. Well, that is all in terms of our weather updates. There is Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and later we'll be having sports. But also, do remember that we do have a Good Morning Uganda agenda, as Jagenda Semakula will be here to take you through that. Leave you at that and wish you a very good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda does still continue. We want to now take a look at some of your reactions to our poll question this morning. Andrew Smart Galex's bookshop, Dokolo. It's such a good idea of opening churches, thanks to God and to our president, but Christians should observe SOPs. That's a very good recommendation. Christians are still Ugandans and they must observe SOPs. Otherwise, Mr. President will still take us back to a full lockdown for churches. GMU, different stakeholders need to be empowered to sensitize the different masses under their dockets, as it is positively an impact on vaccination. The government should avail all different vaccines so that low Wananchi, yeah, I think they meant Wananchi, chooses. Sergeant Bernard. Well, thank you so much, Sergeant. But you also say that the team, you have a point, How many top government officials have had their vaccinations taken? You're also talking about how they should lead from the front and not poko. All employees in government sector should be role models and not just put in on few categories like forces and teachers, where it's obviously inevitable. Well, thank you so much, Sergeant. That was a good intake. If the front runners can actually be the best example, then maybe the rest of Uganda should follow easily to attain the 4.8 million target for the vaccinated, and that is for both shots, by the way. Sharing is caring. That's a very interesting link that has been shared, but we don't need it right now. Hi, I'm Felix from Nakapilipit. More sensitizations needs to be done. Most people have not yet understood about COVID vaccines. Instead, people are confused with the information that they are seeing on social media. The vaccines are not good, in quotes. Many people are still fearing. Let's do more education, because the more people understand the benefits of COVID-19 vaccination, the more they will want to be vaccinated. I think we saw the issue of sensitization coming out to, relay the fate of the recently concluded elections. The mass sensitization was very low, and that way people could not register, didn't know where to register from or pick their cards from, or didn't know where their voter regions were and things like that. So that challenged the way things stand out in the election season. So I think that should give us as a back example to let us know that it's very important, especially in a time where you have so many vaccines, variations. You have the Pfizer, you have the Johnson & Johnson, you have the Covax, you have so many types that are available on the Ugandan market. It's very important now more than ever that we have sensitization put out in that regard. And finally, good morning, UBC. Thank you so much for this morning show. I appreciate your endeavors always to ensure we are informed Monday to Monday. To add my voice on what Mr. President made point yesterday, vaccinate in quotes. Now Ugandans, it seems like vaccination will be an opener to everything in the country. Now the jab is for free. That's the first information that every Ugandan must know. The jab is for free. What we need now is not war to push you to go and get yours, but it needs personal understanding and true knowledge about the vaccine, not the false knowledge from the misleading citizens who have personal differences with the ruling government. It doesn't need political affiliation, but believe just as we believe that Jesus is in heaven. I have gone for the complete dose a month ago, and I have seen no problem with the vaccine so far. Those who are non-vaccinated, I think he's talking about his testimonial. Maybe those who are not yet receiving their jabs, perhaps if he is alive and kicking today, if he's to get COVID-19, trust you me, it won't be as severe as if he did have a vaccine. And that's, I think, the bigger picture that we need to look at. The president did make relation to when we had measles hitting the country and other epidemics that have hit the country before. And if we can respond in the same manner that was responded to back in the day, then at the end of the day, the president's one major target is to ensure that no Ugandan has to die because of COVID-19, and vaccination definitely can be one of those solutions. So here on Good Morning Uganda, we add our voice to the president, and just to let you know that please go for your vaccine. Please go and get that jab. It is for your health, it's for the health of your family, the protection of your community, but also Uganda as a whole. If we want to go back into normal, you must be jealous at the fact that now, as far as football is concerned, Europe across the stadiums are open and people can go and enjoy their Manchester United games, losing games, and then come back home and everything is okay. That's simply because those countries have attained the vaccination target numbers that they wanted. Our target is 4.8 this particular year by end of 2021. So I am encouraging you, I implore you, dear fellow Ugandan, please go for your vaccine. But as you also wait for your second jab, just to remind you, the SOPs still do apply. Even if you are working in a kiosk, even if you're working in a market, even if you're working in a mall, wherever it is that you are interacting with masses, with gatherings, with a lot of numbers, please wear your mask and ensure that you sanitize all the time. That way we can actually live and cope with COVID-19 as the days, the weeks and the years go by. Good Morning Uganda does still continue. We do have agenda with Felix Nkunda, and they're going to be talking about the Uganda National Cancer Conference that is going to be broadcasted live here on UBC at exactly 10 a.m. this morning. And we want to understand more about cancer, the technologies that have come out to aid in the treatments of cancer within Uganda, the kind of cancers that we're receiving in Uganda, causes of these cancers and solutions, and how really the health sector is helping us Ugandans that have families, friends that have suffered from cancer, are ill of cancer, be able to receive treatments, especially that are free as far as the public sector is concerned. Good Morning Uganda does continue.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN. When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Switch from AfriCell to Airtel, Uganda's only 100% 4G network, and get 50% data bonus on all bundles purchased using Airtel Money. Visit the nearest Airtel shop with a valid national ID to buy a SIM card today. For business entities, please share an email with business.support@ug.airtel.com. Enjoy the best rates on calls, SMS, data, and Airtel Money across Uganda on your preferred number. 50% data bonus is valid till 15th November 2021. Airtel, the smartphone network.
5 for 5, 5 times the winning, yeah. 5 times the happiness, yeah. 5 times the luckiness, yeah. 5 for 5, oh yeah. It's 5 for 5. 5 for 5, 5 times the money, yeah. 5 times the shopping, yeah. 5 times the prizes, yeah. 5 for 5, oh yeah. It's 5 for 5. 5 for 5.
Win 100,000 Uganda shillings weekly in the 5 for 5 jackpot. Simply download the Center mobile app. Click Center on the go to open your account online. Transact 5 times or more using Center Mobile, Center Visa, and Center Agent to stand a chance to win. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. So, participate in the 5 for 5 jackpot and win millions in daily and weekly prizes. The 5 for 5 jackpot is brought to you by Centenary Bank, our bank. Centenary Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
Getting GoTV was the best decision James has ever made. Finding a good place to watch football was never easy, but it was costly until James discovered something big. Now he can finally enjoy the benefits of homegrown advantage with a decoder and 1 month of GoTV value. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it.
My home, I smile when I think of you, Uganda. My home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda. My home, oh my Uganda.
I know, with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart. Mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey, mama. At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, today, 23rd September 2021, again we say thank you so much for always keeping it here with us on UBC Now Good Morning Uganda. Of course, today being one of those days where we do bring to you much more what's happening in terms of current affairs, and of course that is locally and internationally. But today in our GMU agenda, we want to look at health again, and health being very much specific, we'll be looking at cancer. Now, the Uganda Cancer Institute is an institution that has been here for quite some time, and actually I'm so surprised when I was sharing Dr. Remy tells me that it dates far back in 1960s, and just 7, yeah, it's so surprising. And of course, with me to discuss this topic, today we'll be also having a conference which me and Doctor will be talking about, and what will be the purpose, what are the expectations, and what we'll look forward out of this conference. But allow me also to say good morning to you, Dr. Oriem.
Good morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
It's a pleasure being here.
How is the family at home? Then we shall look at the family at the Cancer Institute. Let's start with the people at home. How is your family?
They are doing okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
And how is the family at the Institute?
They woke up well.
Okay.
They have started their work.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. We know for a fact that the Institute has changed so many people's lives, from the stories we hear and of course experience the testimonies, and probably we must say thank you so much for the good work at the Institute.
Welcome.
You pass our regards to your team and the people there.
Thank you.
Maybe just before we get into the third Uganda conference on cancer and palliative care, we just want to give a bit of just background on this whole thing of cancer. It's another myth, if one would call it a puzzle, that has failed for us to fix, and what is the, if someone asked on a spectrum of, let's say, what is the status of cancer in Uganda?
Thank you. I think that's a very good starting point. As you rightly said, you know, cancer, I would say, is an enigma in this country.
Yeah.
And that's why way back 1967, and even actually much earlier than that, our researchers as well as healthcare workers have already been grappling with it. Starts with 1958, a discovery of a new cancer here in Uganda, which put Uganda on the map of the world, called Burkitt's lymphoma. And then comes 1967, the need for establishing a dedicated research institution for cancer in the country that was actually attracting researchers from all over the world to study that particular cancer and to get a solution from that cancer that can actually be used for other cancers. And then fast forward in the 70s and the 80s, the stature of our cancer research grew to the extent that actually we became like the roadmap for handling diseases which were challenging. And then, of course, with the coming of HIV in the 80s as well as the 90s, new cancers started emerging that were related to that disease. And then, of course, with the development and the prosperity that is coming in the country, so many kind of people getting change in their lifestyle, cancers that are related to lifestyle also started coming up. So what we call the incidence, or I would say the burden of cancer in the country started going up. And then, of course, in the 2000, coming to the time that we are in now, then the government said, I think there is something that we need to do about cancers, and that's why it started now to increase the stature as well as the capacity of the Uganda Cancer Institute through some degree of funding, and then also some leveraging some mechanism that will make it kind of to rise up to the situation. And that is how now we are at this situation where we find ourselves. Cancers has gone up, and at the same time also the Uganda Cancer Institute has been empowered to do everything possible to make sure that, you know, we have the capacity to handle cancer in the country.
Okay. Now we'll directly go into the third Uganda Conference on Cancer and Palliative Care. If in an open-ended way, what is this third Uganda Conference? By being third, probably there was a second and first. Maybe you can just shed some light on what this conference is and why and where did it start?
Yeah. So I think the starting point is to kind of define these two terminologies, palliative care and then cancer care. Now, cancer care, of course, is when we as health workers kind of specifically focus on the cancer as the disease. And that means you need to know its biology, its cause, and then how it can be treated, how it affects the individual, and how you can actually control it in the individual. Now, when you do that, there are also other elements that maybe you kind of overlook in the process of kind of trying to focus on the disease. Yeah, that is the impact it has on the well-being of the individual, on the family, and then on the community. That is now where palliative care comes in. You know, there is what we call the quality of life of an individual, where if, for instance, you are being treated for a disease, and then after the disease has been cured, you go back to try to do what you always love to do and you cannot do, we say that your quality of life has been reduced. It may be by the disease,
yes,
and even by the treatment, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and it may be that, you know, in the past you used to sprint, now you cannot, you know, even though the disease is not there, you're being incapacitated. So we say your quality of life has been reduced. So palliative care is meant to kind of reduce that, try to control that, so that a person goes back to doing what he can actually do, his capacity, as if the disease was not there. Yeah, so that is actually why these two are very important. Now, that said, in Uganda, Of course, we have well-established way of treating cancers. But now, handling those other aspects, you know, that comes along with the disease is now where we need some specialists also to concentrate on that. So we started working with palliative care specialists, and actually I would say palliative care is a movement in the sense that there are many people whose focus is now on that, and they're diverse from different backgrounds, be it health workers, social workers, name it, all of them actually focusing on one thing, that is the well-being of the individual. So we decided to kind of put our heads together, put our resources together, focusing on the patient. Our focus is the patient. So we come from the angle of the disease, then from the angle of the well-being of the individual.
And all those things.
Exactly. So
Yes.
that is what it is all about. So this is the third time we're having a conference. The conference actually basically is to look at one thing. How have we done, you know, over the last maybe few years? An evaluation.
Yes.
And this evaluation can be done through reports, through research findings, you know, through just discussion, and then coming up with new ways how we can move together for the future. So that is actually what this conference is all about. And this is the third time we are having it.
So does the conference happen annually, or is after 2 years or 5 years? How often does the conference happen?
You're right, biannually, that after 2 years. So now, since we are in 2021, that means the next one we are going to have is going to be in 2023. Yeah.
So maybe also just to understand this more, when you talk about palliative care, doctor, and then we're talking about cancer treatment, who should be in charge of the palliative care? Should we say we should have a particular medical also recommendation in terms of that? Should that be also the job of your team at the Cancer Institute, or maybe the parents, the friends, the spouses? Who is best positioned to give this?
That's a very good point you're bringing up. So this is how it goes. We as the health workers, in this case the cancer doctors or the oncologists, identify the problem. Okay? You say, okay, we have treated the patient, we have reached here, but we see that, you know, the symptoms, you know, the well-being of the patient, you know, is there specifically this and that and that. And then that is when now we bring on board the palliative care experts and then say, okay, you handle. And they go specifically each problem by problem to solve it. For instance, if a patient has a psychological problem, that means actually they need to come up with a solution for that. If the patient has pain, for instance, they come up with how to control the pain. In other words, actually the focus is on the symptoms, not the disease.
Oh.
Yeah, because the disease can be specifically handled, so that means the symptoms also need to be handled in order for the patient actually to kind of feel well.
Okay. Now, having said that, it gets me thinking, what are the statistics of cancer? Any statistics currently, like in terms of, has it gone down, is it going up? Are we looking at which ages of people majorly does it affect, or what group of people? Because that then will also help us understand the relevant palliative care we may have to focus on. What are the statistics? Where do we stand in terms of age, in terms of region, in terms of the different kinds of people?
A very good point also. So before actually we go there, I think I need to clarify one thing, that even though cancer is like the model disease for the palliative care practice, the principle of palliative care can kind of be applied across the board for all other diseases. Actually, be it HIV, be it heart disease, be it, name it, all these other diseases, you can apply the same principle for palliative care for them. And that is actually a very important reason why we are popularizing this through this conference, so that, you know, in the long run, you know, this principle is applied and becomes part and parcel of how actually the healthcare works. We want to make sure that it is mainstreamed. So that is one thing I wanted to clarify. But now, that said, of course, cancer is the disease that kind of this principle has been most used in. And the question of the burden of cancer in this country actually is very important and very relevant in the sense that it can help us to understand the value or the importance of palliative care, given that the numbers has been going up. We talk about incidence. Incidence, that's the number of new cases of cancer that is occurring in a community. And we kind of calculate that every year or yearly. And in this country, I want to give you in terms of the range, the way, or the way it has actually been growing. If you talk about 2009, for instance, we had for every 100,000 population, we were talking about 150 new cancer cases. Okay? Now, fast forward, now as we stand, we are talking about 350 new cases per every 100,000 population. So that means actually the incidence has actually more than double. Okay?
Yes.
So that is how bad the situation is. But even to make it worse, if you take every time when you get diagnosed 100 cancer patients, and then you follow them up for 1 year, of those, 80 would have died. So that means we have a mortality of 80%.
80 out of 80?
Yes.
Out of 100?
Out of 100.
80 patients actually died.
Yeah. So we have a very, very high mortality rate. So we have a high incidence and we have high mortality. So that is a very, very, very scary situation. And that is actually what we need to do. We have our work cut out. First of all, we must reduce the number of new cases occurring. And there, the key tool to use is prevention. You know, prevention in terms of change of lifestyle, prevention in terms of vaccination. There are some cancers we can vaccinate.
Break down the prevention methods, Doctor, for our viewers to also appreciate. We can start with what you first said, lifestyle. What do you mean?
So in terms of lifestyle, for instance, as I told you, the type of cancers that we started seeing about 2000 coming forward are related to lifestyle. That means sedentariness, obesity, you know, and lack of exercise. You know, people are not, and there are certain specific type of cancers that actually are related to that. For instance, cancer of the colon is related to diet. Cancer of the breast, and then cancer of the prostate are related to a lack of exercise, for instance.
Prostate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, and then there are also those cancers that are related to, I would say, sexually transmitted. For instance, a cancer like human papillomavirus. Actually, that is a sexually transmitted. So you can see that, you know, lifestyle is a very, very important aspect in as far as causation of cancer is concerned.
About feeding, did you?
So feeding, because obesity is actually a risk factor for those cancers. Yeah. Okay. We call them, you know, a cancer that is associated with affluence. That's why you find that in the developed countries, you know, they're not talking about some of the cancers we talk about here. They're talking about cancer like cancer of the colon, cancer of the breast. Those ones are associated with
because of the eating
styles.
You just talked about vaccination.
Well, yes, vaccination, of course, because I mentioned to you this cancer we call cancer of the cervix, which is caused by human papillomavirus. And we do now have a vaccine for it. But this vaccine needs to be given before exposure. And that is why we kind of emphasize that, you know, young girls need to be kind of vaccinated, because if you vaccinate after the exposure, the chances that the vaccine is going to work is very low. So that's very important.
So there's a vaccination for young girls. I've heard about which age and which particular people are qualified to have the vaccination.
That's a good point. So the age, of course, we kind of cut off here in Uganda. I think we are talking about girls below 12 years, I think.
12?
Yes.
All right.
But that is also arbitrary, because you are assuming that by that age somebody is not yet exposed in terms of sexual intercourse. Exactly. Yes. So we think that by that time in our population here, the girls haven't actually started having sexual intercourse.
Yes.
So for that matter, they are safe. So that's when you administer the vaccine. But the same also can apply to the boys. But now for us, for economic reason, we say it is more cost effective first to look at the girls, because the vaccines are quite expensive. Yeah.
So is this vaccine available?
It is available
in Uganda?
Very much available.
Where, doctor?
Yeah, in fact, it is part of the EPI program, or the UNEP program for the vaccination.
Oh.
Yes, it is available.
Maybe you can encourage girls out there, parents, to take these girls. Where should they take them? And like any information about, because probably some of the information is not out there for people to know.
Yeah.
Actually, rarely do you hear that discussion in the public domain about the vaccination against that cancer. Is it the cervical cancer, if I may say? So where can they find this vaccination?
Anywhere where vaccination is done for young children, because it is part and parcel of the routine vaccination. Yeah, so it should actually be given. But of course, I think the strategy is a little different, because we are trying to kind of catch girls in schools, etc., etc. That is just simply because we want to catch up. Yeah.
Now, Doctor, because of our time, we'll just dive probably directly now into the theme of this conference, and it being cancer and palliative care in COVID-19 and other challenging situations. What a theme. You're trying now to narrow down to the COVID times. Maybe also, before we even dissect the theme, what is the effect? What has been the effect, or the effect, because COVID is still on, of effects on cancer as a sickness of its own?
Yeah, I think this is one of the disruption that has actually happened to a situation which I would call was already bad, because the cancer patients are the most, I would call, affected in terms of COVID, because in the first place, their care has been disrupted. And then some of the programs, for instance, that we were mounting for prevention, etc., have also been interfered with. And then to make a bad situation worse is that when they get the disease, they are actually one of those who are very, very vulnerable. Yeah. So when COVID came, not only here in Uganda, but the world over, yes, everyone said, okay, let us close down the hospitals and other services. We focus on only one thing. So that means actually cancer patients have been most disadvantaged during this COVID situation. First of all, they have been forgotten. Nobody is thinking that
I'm more prone.
Yet they are more prone.
Yes.
And then now comes the vaccine. Nobody is thinking about them.
To start with.
They should have been started
the priority group. Yes.
Exactly. So you find that, you know.
Oh yeah.
I think really they have been most disadvantaged. But the good news, in as far as Uganda is concerned, is that we have strong institutions. We are talking about the palliative care movement.
Yes.
We are talking about the Uganda Cancer Institute. We
Yeah.
kind of put up a formidable kind of argument that no, first of all, we are not going to close
these
institutions, because our patients are there. They must actually get access to care. And for that matter, I would say actually Uganda has been very, very unique in the sense that when the rest of the world, people were closing services for cancer, we operated.
We didn't close.
Yes, we did.
Actually, from the statistics you gave, that out of every 100 patients, 80 die. That it can't even match to COVID deaths.
Absolutely.
So the threat of cancer is still bigger than actually COVID.
Absolutely, absolutely. And COVID is coming, COVID is going to go, but cancer is going to be there. Yeah, so for that matter, dismantling our operations just simply because we have this challenge is not a very wise thing. And that is why we came up with this theme for this conference.
So what are the expectations in this conference? What should we expect, and given the relevant stakeholders in terms of the patients of cancer, the people who give the treatment, and of course the team of the palliative, the expected team to be helping you, the palliative care. What are our expectations as you go into this conference, Doctor?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to show that, you know, when you have a strategy of handling a situation, then you kind of create the resilience which is needed for handling that situation. So we want to reassure you know, our cancer patients and the population at large that, you know, things are there. And, you know, we are going to move on, and also we are going to go beyond COVID. So that's the first thing. And then the second is that despite all this, actually, we have been innovating. Researchers have been doing their work. So they are going to present their findings. So it's going to be as if, you know, despite this, you know, we have been working, and there are new findings that we can provide. And these findings, some of them includes what actually we have done during the COVID situation. And this in itself can actually inform other similar challenging situations, how they can be handled. In other words, we are providing now basic information that can be applied across the board, not only for the COVID situation, but other challenging situations that may come in the future.
Okay. Now, Doctor, lastly, maybe who are expected to attend? What is your audience like? Is it an electronic conference? Who's the chief guest? Do I have the chief guest with me here? Just to share a picture of what the conference, how the attendance will be, and for people out there watching UBC, will they be able to get you live? So what will the conference be like?
Oh, that's a good one. So I think I should start with our chief guest.
That's perfect.
Yes, our chief guest is going to be our Right Honorable Prime Minister.
Okay.
Yes, so people should
Honorable Rob Nabanja.
Yeah,
okay.
You should expect to see her. And then, of course, our keynote is going to be given by the WHO Director General.
Okay.
That is Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus.
Yes.
So that is actually to show you the importance of this conference and how people are taking it very, very seriously.
Yes.
And then in terms of delivery, it's going to be a virtual conference.
Okay.
And we want to thank UBC because this conference is going to be kind of delivered live for the entire time. That is today and tomorrow. And then, of course, on other media platforms, be it Zoom and all that kind of thing, the links are all there. So the public actually is expected to log in and to follow what is going on. And we are going to have centers around the country where actually people are going to participate from in all the corners of the country. So it's going to be a virtual conference, but nonetheless it's a very important conference.
Okay. So for some of you who are watching UBC, please stay glued to UBC. You'll be able to follow the events as they happen. As professionals will be discussing cancer and of course palliative care, something quite important, and of course given our statistics quite worrying. You may want to learn a thing or something to be able to share with our people out there and what's happening. Now of course Doctor, I want to let you go, but your last message to the people, probably your patients or your clients, I don't know, different professions call them differently, your clients and of course the people out there who want to of course learn more about cancer, and maybe if you want to share some information, where can they find you, and any address, because so much people have come to know that people do not know about some of the facilities that we offer as an institution. So please, in a minute, you could send a message and also tell them where they can find you and your team.
Yeah, so thank you very much. to our viewers, our clients, and everyone else out there, cancer services in this country is available. The Uganda Cancer Institute, that is situated in Mulago, is open 24 hours, and we do actually receive even people who are just walking in to find their status, because we have a screening program that goes on almost every working day. And in terms of upcountry, we have a center in Barara, we have another one in Arua, we are yet to have one in Bale, but we are currently constructing one in Gulu. And we can actually be found, we do have a toll-free number that people can call, and then our doctors actually are always available to answer your situation or your questions whenever it arises. So you are most welcome. We have a friendly service where our patients usually are navigated so that they do not get lost when they come, and they save time. They go straight to what the problems are that has brought them.
Okay, Doctor, thank you so much for finding time to come and share with us and of course our viewers about this particular conference, and we hope that so much will be learned from this conference. But maybe before, because you're having sports next, I would want to ask Doctor, do you support football? What game do you do?
Well, I used to love football when I was younger, but basically I'm a basketballer. Or a retired basketballer. Yes.
Wow.
I played up to university level.
Oh,
yes.
So that means you would be very conversant with the teams in the US. Which one you support?
Well, my teams, the Cavaliers.
Ah, okay. Ruben, that is now up for you to pick up, but we'll be having Ruben up next with sports. Of course, we'll be telling us what's happening. But I asked him a question about the mannerism of Ronaldo, that is Cristiano. We have seen him take over the touchline many times. I saw him in Portugal. Most recently, I also saw him trying to struggle for space with Hooligan Social. But let's take a break. Ruben is up next with sports updates. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94# to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175# and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Brought to you by
GoTV Valley. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it. Getting GoTV was the best decision James has ever made. Finding a good place to watch football was never easy, but it was costly until James discovered something big. Now he can finally enjoy the benefits of homegrown advantage with a decoder and 1 month of GoTV Valley. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it.
And a clever through ball as Nketiah finds Gabriel Martinelli, appeals for a penalty, must be a penalty, and it is. Excellent work from Nketiah to free his fellow forward. Martinelli streaking into the box, putting the fear of goal into the defence.